All right, guys, so we often get a bunch of questions about where our games come from. Well, we're here in Louisville, Texas at the American Amusement Auction. This is it. This is where we get a ton of our games, and we're gonna be here buying a ton of awesome games. We've got Cheyenne here, we've got Lord of the Rings pinball. You're gonna get a ton of kind of hidden secret strategy. You're gonna see how we bid, and we're gonna just record the whole auction and see how it turns out. So keep watching, follow along. All right, guys, so there's a ton of interesting stuff here at the auction. We've got this Central Texas company, Virtua. They've brought a ton of games here. Some of them have just multicades. Some of them have real PCBs in them, and it's almost impossible to tell, and you just buy them and you hope to get lucky. So this whole row, just from a Central Texas company called Virtua Multi-Systems. No one's ever heard of them. You can't find them on the internet, but apparently they had like 10,000 games in the state of Texas at one point. And so, for example, I don't know if this is a Virtua game or not, but this is a pretty rare Japanese baseball game, and it is running, I believe, the original PCB. We'll find out later because we'll probably end up buying this one. And so the key to these auctions, it's all as is where it sits. You buy it, good luck. We've got things like a broken asteroids right there. It might be a minor repair or it might be complete trash. You don't know until you buy it, bring it home, and test it out. For example, this is an Atari anti-aircraft. In all likelihood, there's not enough parts to make a good game there, but that's quite rare. Early 70s, mid 70s Atari, really, really great game. And if it was working, there'd be no doubt that we'd buy it. And so obviously the games here run the gamut of new, old, random. This is a Paradise Lost, a relatively rare, almost brand new arcade game that is just a global VR version of Paradise Lost. It's not a terrible game. It's too new for free play, but you'll see prices all over the place. You might see a game sell for $100 and the very next game sell for $4,000 or $5,000. You never know what the operators are looking for or really the condition. And a bidding war is all it takes for things to get really expensive. So it's not a good game, but I have a terrible soft spot in my heart for Virtua Fighter. It was a launch game at Free Play Richardson, almost entirely because I love it. It's not out right now. Maybe I'll buy this one and get another one out. Berserk, that looks like an original cabinet. It looks really nice. Taito Space Chase, it's not working, but that is such a cool cabinet. I will almost certainly buy it to try to fix it because it's so insane. And you can just see the art was so lovingly made in those early 80s, late 70s games. This is kind of funky. It looks like a Burger Time sequel in a Pac-Man Galaga 20th anniversary cabinet. I have no idea how that came about, but it's really pretty interesting and unique. And probably emulated. So, and then there's a Taito Polaris. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's just really hard to find if you're just searching for it, but you never know what's gonna show up at the auction because you never know what someone just happens to have in their garage. They search Google and they say, how do I sell an arcade game? The auction pops up almost first, and that's how. This is how you sell your arcade games if you just have one in a basement and you don't wanna deal with the hassle. You just bring it here, they'll sell it for you, and you're gonna get a good price. And so where we're at right now, this is the early kind of testing period. They'll plug them all in, see if they turn on, and that's pretty much it. You can go up there, try to play it, it might play, and that's the information you get, and you're generally buying these games mostly blind. And yeah, I mean, there's cool stuff. That's a Frenzy. You've got a nice DK Jr., a really cool Centipede Cabaret, and then you've got weird stuff, emulated, hacked up Tron that'll probably sell for too much, just because home buyers, they don't care, they want reliability over the original. Looks like a real Play Choice 10 Dual Mon in rough condition, but still really awesome. And then we've got an actual Taito Cabaret Space Invaders. Looks really cool. It's right next to a big Bit Valley Midway. This is the American, that's the Japanese. Really cool. I mean, it's the same games, but both made by Taito. But Bally, with their licensing, they license it for US release. And it looks like this one's running the multi-game selector. This is actually a multi-game that runs original code through original chips. It's just, it also saves the ROMs, makes Space Invaders, gives Space Invaders free play. We actually run this multi-kit on a lot of our Space Invaders just so that we get that free play option and don't have to work on coining it up or installing a coin up or anything like that. Most of the Atari cocktails were designed to be able to lift it. This is a centipede cocktail, original centipede cocktail, but they've got it all the way up so that you can stand up and play. And it looks in decent condition. It probably has reproduction overlay, but it looks really, really nice overall. And this is great because it's a Moon Cresta. It's a rare game that they made a ton of in Japan, but it's relatively rare in the US. And unfortunately, it's in the cocktail format here, and cocktail format Moon Cresta, I can guarantee you, would be one of the less played games, or least played of all time at free play, which is sad because it's an awesome game. All right, so this auction this time, you never know what you're gonna find. Every auction is completely different, and they'll make sure they tell you that 100 times so that you keep coming to the auctions. But there's a decent pinball lineup here, and there's a ton of pinball. Valley Game Show is a really cool pinball. No pinball guy would ever say it's their favorite. No pinball person would ever even say it's in their top 20. But it's actually a really awesome, consumer-friendly game that just, I mean, easy shots, easy to play, and a ton of fun, and kind of a cool theme that isn't, you know, overly attached to any one license. You know, in some ways it kind of reminds me of Smash TV. Laser Ball, if this one was working, it's really cool. A wide body, old, I think this is like a 1980, 1978 game, but it's, I mean, the theming is insane. Back when, you know, every single pinball, no matter what, had to have some kind of girl on the back glass. This Rescue 911 is clearly out of someone's home. It's well loved. It's got the LED kit. The helicopter is working in the helicopter feature. So yeah, it's a really, really cool game. It's playing a little rough in terms of playability. It's a slow game, but in terms of gimmick, I don't know if there's any pinball that's ever been quite as insane. Now, there are other pinballs that are quite as insane, but it's really neat. And so this is a Demolition Man right here. It actually looks in really good condition, but it's not set to free play, and the quarter mechs aren't working. So this is a true gamble. It looks okay, but you don't know what you're gonna get when you take it home. Matahari, one of the higher production numbers in the late 70s. I think it was actually half of them were EM, and then they switched to solid state later. Really cool game, but you'll see it in a lot of places because they made so many of them. And then we've got the Getaway. It looks pretty nice. It's been playing pretty well. A few little issues. That's probably my favorite here. AC/DC, a relatively new Stern release. And then we have Stern's all-time greatest release, Lord of the Rings. You rarely see these come up at auction. This is in players' quality condition, so it's well played. It needs some work, but it's probably considered a top 5 pinball of all time, right up there with Twilight Zone and Attack from Mars. So we're definitely going to be targeting it. We'll see how much that could go. $6,000, $7,000 depending on the auction crowd today. So we'll walk through some of the driving games here. And one of the things to remember is every price that you see today is subject to both a buyer's premium of 15% and an 8.5 or 8.25% Texas sales tax. So you have to add 20+% onto any purchase here, and just for fees and taxes. So you might see what looks like a really good deal that becomes not quite as good of a deal once you add that 20+%. I mean, a working Chase HQ, not a great game, but God, I just love the theming of it so much. And so every auction has a bunch of driving games, and one of the things you'll probably see as we go through the auction is that the driving games go for less money than you'd expect because they're really hard to get into someone's house. No home buyer really is gonna buy one because you have to have some ability to push these 500-600 pound beasts onto a truck bed and into your house. We'll often see home buyers buy them and then just leave them to be put back in the auction because it's so hard to get these installed anywhere. I don't even know what Sega Wing War is. It looks really cool. I'm gonna assume it's some sort of like fighter airplane game, but I mean, that's what's really neat is you'll see games that you never really expect, or maybe you missed because that's probably a mid-90s game that when arcades were dying, and it looks really cool. It looks like it's in the Daytona style cab. So this is cool. Someone brought in 3 Atari Sprints. Obviously, none of them perfect. I don't believe any of them are working. And I think the theory here is that if you had enough parts, you could make one of these work. This is a lot of parts, so we'll see if they join them all as one auction, or if they give you buyer's choice and try to do something like that. The auctioneers, they're here mainly to get the most dollars for the sellers because the sellers are required. So you'll see them using all sorts of like really cool, awesome, but some people would consider shady auction gimmicks to get you to spend more money. For example, they'll let you buy one of these and ask if you want all 3 for the same price each time, which obviously they're not all the same quality. it's something to look out for, but it might be what you want to go ahead and capture all 3 of these sprints without getting into a bidding war. And what's really, really cool here is these are still stamped Key Games, which was Atari's sub-company that they formed to get out of the licensing agreements they sold with other places. It's funny too, because this is right when they were merging, so you see an Atari stamp and a Key Games stamp on the same game. Key Games, of course, was founded by the best friend of Nolan Bushnell, just to get around their kind of limitations that they had signed on their different licensing agreements. So really cool piece of history. If they were working, we'd buy them in a second. But if you've seen our warehouses, you know we have a ton of really cool old projects that we're still working on, and we probably don't need any more. So, and there's all these games here that like we just could never have, but like a Chicago Coin Speedway, you can just look at that and know how cool it would be if you had it in great working condition. But this one's obviously not working, and even if it was working perfectly, it'd be very difficult to keep on a free play floor. Got a Mad Planets, very rare, very cool Gottlieb game. Just as Gottlieb was shutting down their arcade division, they brought out a Mad Planets. I haven't seen it turned on, but it'll probably still go for a decent amount no matter what. Terminator 2 Judgment Day, the stand-up gun game, is probably the most requested game we've had at Free Play that we've never featured. We own a few of them. We've just had issues getting them to the quality and condition we need for a free play game. Cheyenne, we mentioned earlier, all of these XD gun games always sell really well. They have a decent support in the aftermarket with ROM savers, multi-games that are running original code, that kind of stuff. So you'll often see these go quite high. We're gonna be targeting this. We'll see if it turns on or anything. We've owned quite a few of the XD gun games in the past, but getting them reliable enough without relying on emulation is really hard, and we're obviously against emulation, so we haven't been able to get one out yet. Kind of rough, but playable Donkey Kong. And another Vroom multi-gate system, but it looks like it's running one of the original PCBs in it. We'll see. And then, yeah, you never know. Like, right here, this is one of the craziest things. It's a Donkey Kong with a radar scope bezel, radar scope marquee. Radar scope, famously, all the original Donkey Kong cabinets were radar scope cabinets, and that's where the red came from. This one looks like it was a Donkey Kong that then got converted to a radar scope, which I've never seen before, and that's what's really cool about these auctions. You never know what's gonna come out. And it doesn't look even close to working, so we probably won't be bidding, but it's interesting. I mean, this looks like a pretty nice Zaxxon, all things considered. Zaxxon, one of the classic games that we have to have that no one ever plays. All right, guys, the auction's about to start. The next footage you're gonna see is probably me bidding. I won't be addressing the camera as much once we get into it because I'll be like in the thick of the battle. But hopefully we're gonna come out with some awesome games, and hopefully you can pick up some really cool strategy tips or even kind of things to copy from Free Play, how we get so many awesome games. So here we go, we're about to dive into it.